Yeah, I think it's 1 minute. We have 1 minute left to start. Thank you so much for joining this. Okay, great. Thank you, Eugene. Thank you so much for joining our brief presentation. Today, we are going to share our important project and timely project. So, Sen, could you please start sharing the presentation, please?
Yeah, sure. A minute. Okay. Can you see?
Yes, I can. We can go from. Okay, thank you. So just to start, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Diana Campos, a program coordinator for the Environmental Fragility Peace Nexus at CDA Collaborative Learning Project. My colleague Sen also is going to share some ideas and share the project. I also want to add that this initial presentation has changed in terms of speakers. Siad Darwish, the program coordinator of this project, couldn't join this session because of some time sensitivity in Yemen. As a peace builders, we face some challenges in the ground. So this time Siad won't be with us, but we are happy to present this project.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's start. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on where you are. And I'm Jenny. I'm a fellow at CDA Collaborative Learning Project. I'm just graduated from NYU, so I'm really happy to be back to work with NYU again. And I'm really happy to present this topic, big and thick data for climate resilience, with my esteemed colleague Diana Campos. And this is our agenda for today. And I will briefly introduce CDA and our environmental peace building project. And then I will talk about the gaps in analysis tools of big and thick data for climate resilience. And Diana will dive deeper into how and what CDA's work are merging the two data systems. CDA exists to improve the effectiveness and accountability of peacebuilding, development, and humanitarian action. And we recognize that our office is located on the traditional and ancestral line of the Massachusetts people. For over 30 years of collaborative learning projects, CDA is always committed to do no harm framework and principle, and focuses on field building and system change. CDA always puts people at the center in meaning making and decisions. And currently, we have several projects, collaborative learning projects, and environmental peace building is one of them. Why environmental peace building? This is because we believe that the operational environment is changing, and both climate change and conflict are complex challenges we are facing. They are all abrupt, non-linear change in social ecological systems. And our environmental fragility peace nexus or environmental peace building project is an inductive analysis to discover the patterns, which means that we conduct research in local communities and specific contexts first, and then try to collect data and find the common patterns abroad. And now we're going to jump into how can our inductive analysis contribute to merge big and thick data for anticipatory action in climate resilience. And I will start with the gaps between the big and thick data in climate resilience. First gap is the limited integration of big and thick data. Big data can only tell part of the story. Like, as we all know that many existing analysis tools focus like most on big data, but not on effectively like integrating both big data and thick data. This leads to a fragmented understanding of the complex relationships between climate variables and social, economical, or political dynamics. And the second gap is the lack of contextualization. Since existing tools often prioritize big data, as I mentioned, this limits the ability to capture the rich contextual information that thick data provides. Big data tools are good at predicting trends, but not the major deviations in those trends due to the complex interactions and unanticipated events in specific contexts, which might not be adequately addressed by traditional big data or forecasting methods. For example, big data global analysis and predicting violence, it's like we look down from space to human conflicts, which could easily miss some details. For example, like yesterday, we still haven't known that who's the one bombed the hospital in Gaza. And it means that it's not good enough for big data itself to design specific program, and it's not good enough to adapt changes and complexities based on the local people's needs and interests. This makes it challenging to tailor interventions to the unique situations of each affected community or individuals. But this could be complemented by thick data, which delves into the underlying stories, emotions, and the motivations that drive the data point, which can help us to more accurately understand the true impact of climate change on individuals, communities, and ecosystems, and also the impact of conflict on individuals and communities. And the third gap is data quality and availability. The availability and quality of big and thick data can be both inconsistent, particularly regarding big data. For example, big data noise can affect the quality of data. Moreover, in regions with limited resources or political instability, from our work, that we know that local practitioners, many of them, do not have the big data tools to predict the future. Therefore, the analysis tools must be equipped to handle data gaps and uncertainties. By engaging with local people, local communities, and local stakeholders. These tools are crucial for collecting thick data and ensuring that the perspectives and experiences of affected individuals and communities are incorporated into the analysis so that it can validate the big data. And last but not least, data sometimes, or very often currently, excludes the human-centric design, where do no harm is always missing. Many existing tools may not prioritize the needs, perspectives, and experiences of the affected communities, but the investors. The do no harm principle, which put human at the center, is crucial in this context. Do no harm, if you are not familiar, do no harm emphasizes the importance of avoiding actions that could accidentally exacerbate conflicts or harm communities or individuals, especially those vulnerable populations in conflicts or in affected by climate change. Addressing this gap is critical for ensuring that climate resilience analysis tools not only provide accurate and insightful data, but also prioritize the well-being and safety of the communities affected by climate-related security risks. This involves incorporating ethical considerations and a strong commitment to do no harm principles throughout the design and the implementation process. Okay, and now let's invite Diana to talk about how and what CDA are working to fill the gaps.
Thank you, Sam. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so through this research project called Environmental Fragility and Peace Nexus, we are trying to fill the big and thick data gap. So for people who are not familiar with these two terms, so thick data, it's about quantitative data, and big data, it's more qualitative data. So in this project, we are trying to integrate qualitative and quantitative data to build a tool for anticipatory action for climate resilience. So as Sen mentioned before, so there are kind of 4 gaps that limit this the collaboration of these two big data systems. So, and this project is trying to fill that gap using the listening approach, in which people is at the center of this project, meaning that we are listening to communities affected by climate change impacts in conflict or fragile context. So having them as our main actors, we can understand the complexity of climate change and how this contemporary issue triggers conflict or escalate conflicts in those locations. So, and also we value that the expertise of an experience of people that who are at the center of this research project is unique because it informed this project for to build tools and framework that in the future could be used for practitioners and for policy making in regard to building climate resilience or climate adaptation strategies. So also this project so this project also understands that the adaptation for climate change requires knowledge, but important knowledge. So from local knowledge, particularly in this case from indigenous communities knowledge and data science. We value both as equals for developing climate resilience and strategy. The third element of this anticipatory action for climate resilience, it's using a systems thinking approach. Our project focuses on the understanding of this link between conflict, climate change impacts, and environmental degradation and conflict using system thinking approach. And using this tool, we can analyze and reflect having these two different knowledge to have or to get tangible benefits from local communities also and to inform more Western science. And finally, also this project practice the do no harm principle, which respects and includes communities because they are, as I mentioned before, at the center of this project. Also, we ensure that the use of indigenous data or knowledge are for collective benefit within their communities, and also that impacts in the more like regional or national scale. And also we, indigenous communities or local communities have the authority to control their own data. So these 4 elements are our part of our ecosystem to build this anticipatory action for climate resilience. Next, please. So now I want to share our experience in our 3 initial case study that we have conducted in the past year. So we went in July 2022 to Fiji, at the end of last year to Northern California, and this year we started this case study in Ghana. So we use, as I mentioned, a system thinking approach in which we analyze 4 main factors: environmental vulnerabilities, driver of conflict, drivers of peace and social cohesion, and factors for resilience. And to explain in more depth, I want to just focus on our Northern California case study, in which we studied the extreme wildfires events that are happening right now that affects rural and urban communities. But most importantly, it affects the well-being and culture of indigenous communities. So part of this analysis, we found that drought increase the risk of wildfires, and drought is also part of a climate variability caused by climate change. And also we found a problem of an issue of water pollution. So doing this analysis, working very hand-to-hand with local actors, also we analyzed drivers of conflict, in which we found that, for instance, settled colonial policies, private property law create conflicts, but also exacerbate the problem of wildfires in Northern California. So in about these drivers of peace and social cohesion, we found that relationships build, so communities are building relationships based on restorative justice practices. And also part of the driver for peace are financial sustainability to continue managing the traditional land to reduce wildfires risk. And here I want to highlight, in terms of factors for resilience, that traditional ecological knowledge and the collaboration between indigenous tribes and the public institutions are key to increase climate resilience in this location. Burning practices, it's a common traditional practice within tribes in Northern California. They are very attached to their land, not only because it provides food and security, but also because it's part of their spiritual culture. So we, in this project, we are trying to put together climate data and traditional ecological knowledge of indigenous communities in Northern California to understand and to see what are the best practices and also that could inform to build sustainable and efficient policies at the local level. So this is something that we are doing right now. And Sam, could you please go next? Next. And here, this is an example of what we have done with the Nishinan tribe. They are our partners in this process. And we built this, actually, we didn't build these system maps. The community built these system maps with our facilitation process. And so here you can see what are those factors for conflict, peace, resilience, and climate impacts. And the importance of having indigenous ecological knowledge in this process to understand how they can inform using data climate data to build more sustainable policies to address climate impacts or prevent climate impacts. And also, this project is about to create disaster risk reduction using these two knowledge systems and also early warning systems. So I think that it's all for our presentation. If you are interested in knowing more about our project, you can visit our CDA Collaborative Learning webpage, and you will find our 3 reports of our initial case studies. Then if you can go back to the map of the, yes, to the map, please. The map of the locations for case study. Yes, so, and before ending, I just want to mention that this is a global study in which we want to collect information from 15 to 20 case study globally. In our line up, it is Colombia, Peru. We are about to go to Kenya and Ethiopia, cross-border, to understand what are those livelihood dynamics that are changing because of climate change and the increase of conflict in that area. Also, Burkina Faso and Lebanon are part of our case study list. So to do this project, we partnered with different organizations. For instance, Robert Bosch Foundation was our first funder to start this research project. And as you can see, we partnered also with different international organizations and also with local organizations to have a engagement with local actors, communities, through a legitimate process. So I think this is all, and thank you so much for your attention. And I would like to open the floor for questions for Q&A section. Thank you. Hello. I don't know if someone wants to or has a comment, a thought.
Hello.
Or, hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Jonathan.
Yes, hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, when you speak about the factors of resilience, I was wondering, how are you able to capture those? Or in other words, how are communities able to self-identify those? What are the kind of questions that you ask? Because of course, if you ask someone, what are your factors of resilience, they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? So I guess, what are the questions that you pose, and what is the way in which you are able to capture this information?
Great, thank you, Jonathan. That is a great question. Actually, because to understand what that means, resilience for communities, we do this we do this through a workshop with different actors, with different numbers of people. And the first question that we ask is, what that means for you, resilience? This is our first entry point for this type of conversation, because we realized in our second case study that resilience has different meanings from different communities, from rural communities to rural communities. So, and the main questions, so depending on their definition of resilience, we start asking questions. For instance, right, what are those kind of practices that you often or use when your communities faced a crisis? You know, what were those activities? Because now we are focused on what are those practices that communities are doing, but in our project also we want to learn from those communities what were those activities that they used to practice, right? Because for instance, indigenous communities have been dealing with climate change or weather patterns change for millennia. So, and we want to understand what are those changes. And so I think my answer for your question is depending on the definition of communities of resilience, we can start making those questions.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I see Lucas from Adelphi. So our project works closely with Adelphi in the development of this project. So Lucas is here. And I don't know if you guys want to have other questions. And also I would like to hear from you if you are working on topics, similar topics, right? Trying to integrate climate science data and kind of local knowledge. It would be interesting hearing from you too, your experiences.
If no one else, I can just come in to say that, I guess to introduce myself, I work for Mercy Corps.
Oh, nice.
And so actually your colleague Siad and myself will be on a panel at the Geneva Peace Week in a couple weeks.
Okay. And also I think you know Ruth.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So we will be discussing, this very topic or a similar one. And I think certainly we take a very similar approach in terms of recognizing that the big data isn't the full story, and in many cases just the lack of data at a localized level, especially when we're talking about areas that have no weather stations whatsoever, as was the case in northeastern Uganda, where we recently conducted one of our assessments. So I think that meeting of both the big data and using lived experience as a very real set of data points is an approach that we also are promoting and practicing.
Yeah, fascinating, Jonathan. Thank you so much. And I think we should start looking at the good examples of conservation projects that are using also data, like a raw data and indigenous or local communities' knowledge to understand those social ecological dynamics and how the landscape have been changing, right? And so to conserve different parts of areas, we need to understand how those parts were before and the practices that they used to do in order to start implementing or designing projects to recover those areas, right? So this is something that it's kind of a similar approach that we are using, but having like having those localized experience to build a more robust and efficient kind of programs, right? And also to tackle climate change impacts that, as I mentioned, exacerbate also conflict, right? Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much all for your time. And I hope we can connect in other time to continue sharing experiences and learning. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Here.